a lot of people, I'm sure, when they see your page, they see, and I get this question all the time, how do you work with brands? How do you get there? And usually it's the beginning stages that are the hardest. And then things just tend to really, compound once you start doing things, and you can show that, hey, look, I have a body of work that other brands can look at and say, hey, I want a version of that. But a lot of people are fascinated by, or just don't know, man, what was that first job? Because I'm sure when you started illustrating, doing creative work, sure there were outside forces, maybe if there were parents, family, peers that were like, okay, good luck with that, making money with your art, and now you've proven that, hey, it's possible. But what were some of those first jobs, and what were some of the challenges going into making your art your job?
Yeah, I mean, I went to SVA art school, but I went for graphic design. So I was already kind of like, how do they say, hedging your bets?
Yeah.
So like graphic design is generally like,
safer.
It's more like a safer version of like, but there's a real like concern about that too, because you can become just like a cog in a crazy corporate world designing brochures or whatever. And I worked, I was a book jacket designer for the first year. But yeah, so I always kind of like had an intuition about where I wanted to be, and always kind of kept hedging my bets, playing it safe, but making sure I had time to work on things I really wanted to work on. So I was always like, now I'm not saying it was always healthy, because I was like working way too much, and I wasn't letting like certain, I was like probably, probably not the best friend or son.
Phases of life.
So yeah, exactly. So I was a book jacket designer for the first year after school. Then I worked for a man named Brian Collins, who's got this great branding firm here in New York, and I worked for him for 3 years. So I was learning the ins and outs and becoming a better designer, and really understanding how this all worked. And I was trying to just make money and save money. And through those first 4 years, and then I went to Apple for 1 year. I moved to San Francisco. I got a job at Apple, and I went there so the first 4 years of my career was book jackets, branding, Apple. And through that time, I basically didn't take a vacation. I didn't do anything except save money and do freelance. I did stuff on the side. So I'd be like rushing home every night to do anything I could get. I started doing like these little editorial illustrations for magazines. And I was doing all these kind of like, I was doing anything I could get. Someone wanted me to do a poster for them. I was really just kind of like exhausting all like visual possibilities, trying to figure out what my identity was and what was interesting to me in the face of all this. So, and that's what I always tell young people is, you just gotta make, there's this whole
try.
You gotta make a lot of stuff before you can make stuff like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So like, that's just really what it's about. And keep doing that. And nothing is possible unless you make time for it, so if you want something, you have to try to make time for it. And if you're going to split hairs and try to like work the full-time job, but then work at nights and weekends doing the stuff you really want to do, well then, you're going to have to sacrifice. You don't have to do that, for instance, but I wasn't in a position where I could just quit my job and try to like, I didn't have enough contacts yet. But when you do have a full-time job in those beginning years, you try to make contacts, more people in the industry. And through that whole process, you start to like carve out your little nook, I guess.
Yeah. And that's when doing that, I feel like, is so important. And it's almost like you're probably not going to have kids during that time. You're not, people have been super critical of this like hustle culture right now.
Sure.
But it's time and place. I think when people watch this stuff and hear these stories, it's not about 24/7 every day, like until you're 60 years old and you haven't taken a breath. It's more of like when you're young, you're trying to figure out what you're doing. If you're in college, should I go to college? Those beginning 20s and your 20s are the time to grind, put your head down, figure it out, so you can, lift up your head, smell the roses in your late 20s, early 30s. If you want, But
I think it's all situational, you know? And like, I think the problem starts happening where like, if you have someone like me on the podcast, right? And I'm like, well, this is the way I did it. So that's the way you
right,
have to do it.
You have to
give
figure
up your
it
whole
out
life.
for you.
So I think people are more criticizing like assholes are just like preaching to them that like the only way to become successful in life is if you give up your whole life and work 24 hours a day for 7 days. And I think that's annoying, you know? Yeah. So I'm just telling you what I did.
And even with your college transitioning into your career, I'm sure you would have had a very safe, successful career in design. And oh my gosh, you ended up at Apple. I'm sure they have a career track that you could have followed. And I just think if you want that extraordinary job, whether it's art, whether it's YouTuber, whether it's these highly sought after jobs, which is crazy now that they are in 2011, you know, it was such a different thing. But you got to sprinkle a little extraness on it because it's not a normal job.
No, it's not normal at all. If you're going to become an independent, whatever, artist, creator, there's not a lot of blueprint.
Right.
You know?
How did you find your style amidst all that? I mean, what were you doing at these agencies and at Apple? Was it designed for the web? Was it in real life stuff? Was it, you know, like you said, book covers? And then how do you find what you're inspired by in the midst of all that?
Yeah, in the midst of all that, you know, in my early 3-4 years while I was working, had a full-time job, I was just trying to do anything on the side. You know, like I said, like I was doing book jackets, covers on the side. I was doing posters on the side, and I was doing all these editorial. I did my first magazine. I did a Time magazine cover. So I was like,
oh, cool.
Really, I was doing a lot of things and trying to figure out who I was as a creator in the face of all that, and what my opinions were about things, and like what I was trying to say. And then I got an opportunity in like 2010, 2011 to do my first mural. And I did this, it was like, they paid for like all the materials. Maybe they gave me $500. Maybe it was free. I can't remember. I didn't care. I mean, those are the privileges. Like if you have a full-time job, you're a little bit like, okay, maybe I'll do this thing for free because I've never done a mural before and I just want to do it. So I had never done a mural, but in my late teens or early 20s, I did paint houses for a living back in Cleveland, right before I moved here. So I worked for this great guy, and I painted homes, and I hung wallpaper. So I have an idea, you know, all we did was work on walls for years. So like I have an idea, you know, connecting the dots, like there's a physicality that I understand coming up to a huge wall. It's not like intimidating to me. Doing my first mural, it was hard as shit. I locked myself in this room for 3 days, crying. Never done anything like this. It took me 3 days to do a mural that would take, it took me 3 days to do a mural that would take me like 6 hours now or something.
Wow.
So, you know, and it was over Memorial Day weekend. I literally was like crying on the third day. I thought, shit, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was trying to project these things. I don't know what, the process was screwed, but it was so stimulating.
Yeah.
I was just like, I walked out of there and I was like, I feel alive in a way I've never felt before. Now, how do I take this little nugget of a feeling and make that my life? Is that possible? I don't know. But like, can you have the audacity to ask yourself that? Can you like, you know, think about what it would look like to do that? Can you start process a trajectory like to go for that? I don't know. I was just like, I want to feel this feeling more, but I didn't know how I'd get more opportunities to do walls or whatever, you know? So what I did is just, the only thing I knew how to do was just fucking tell everyone in the world about this mural, you know, and like put it on an email chain, put it on Twitter, put it on whatever. I mean, it's 2011, so things were different back then, but like got on some design, like graphic design blogs, and some people were sharing it. People literally loved it. And then that kind of led to another kind of like mural that was like maybe free or for a couple $100 or something. And I did that. And then I did one in my bedroom. So I just kept like trying to play that game and like do a little bit, put it out, share it. And
it's all about starting that momentum.